Hi, everyone, and welcome to Forgiveness Friday. I hope that everyone watching today was able to get a chance to read over the blog post and read some of the incredible stories that highlight the power of forgiveness in our lives. And what the blog post went over was 4 amazing, incredible stories of what happens when we have the power to forgive and how the power to forgive can impact the rest of our lives, and not only our lives, but the lives of everyone surrounding us. And so, what I want to do today is dig really deeply into one of the stories that was highlighted in the blog post. And the story that I want to dive deeply into is the story of Nelson Mandela. And I know that many of us watching are probably familiar with the story of Nelson Mandela. He's been a household name for a long time. And he really comes to mind when we think of someone who's come back from adversity and really handled himself well in tough situations. But even in light of how well we know his story, I want to take a step back and really think about how Nelson Mandela got to be the political activist that he did today. So let's think about Nelson Mandela's story. So Nelson Mandela served 27 years in prison, standing up against racist apartheid laws in South Africa. And I know many of us have heard this story, and so we might not think that 27 years sounds like that long because we're so familiar with it. But for some of us watching, 27 years may be half of our lives or even our whole lives. Imagine spending that much time in prison standing up for something that you genuinely and truly believe in and that you're fighting for, a genuine cause, and end up spending 27 years in prison for your beliefs. I think that's something that a lot of us today can't really wrap our minds around. But think about the amount of anger and the amount of hurt that would have built up in Nelson Mandela for 27 years. I think a lot of us might have expected him to come out of prison with a lot of resentment for the people of South Africa, for the rulers of South Africa. But in 1990, when he was released from prison, we see that that was not the case at all. We saw that Nelson Mandela famously forgave those who hurt him, who hurt his country, and he worked tirelessly to mend race relations in South Africa and ended up serving as the president of the country where he was held captive for 27 years. 27 years he was held captive and then ends up serving as president of this country. And I don't think any of that would have been possible if he wasn't able to forgive those who were in power, who ended up putting him in jail for that long. So something happened in Nelson Mandela that we need to be able to tap into as well, to think, what can I do to forgive these people who have wronged me so that I can impact other things for good? Nelson Mandela impacted South Africa for good. There's no doubt about that. But he was able to do that because of the power of forgiveness in his life. If Nelson Mandela wouldn't have forgiven these people that persecuted him, that put him in jail, we might not have the South Africa today that we see, the reality where apartheid is gone because of the work that Nelson Mandela did. And so I want us to think about the things that are holding us captive. We might not be sitting in a prison cell, but we still have this resentment holding us captive. And we need to think about the power that we have to forgive others and what that power can do in our lives. When we tap into the power of forgiveness, we have the ability to impact not only the rest of our lives, but the lives of so many people around us. Think about Nelson Mandela. If he would have chosen not to forgive, not only would he have lived the rest of his life in anger and resentment, but the entire country of South Africa would not look the same as it does today. And so I want us to take a step back and think about our lives. Think about the things that we're holding on to. And it might not be something as big as what happened in Nelson Mandela's life. Maybe it's easier to forgive for these big things, but for some reason you're holding on to a petty argument or a small little piece of resentment for something that happened a long time ago and you don't understand quite why you're holding on to this. I want to encourage everyone today to take a step back and really just think about what you've been holding on to. If there's any resentment in your life, and think about the power that you have. You have the power to forgive these people that you're holding this resentment against. It is in your power to change your life and their life for the long run. So you have this power to do this. So I want us to also think about what's stopping us from doing this. Why haven't we forgiven these people already? We know that forgiving them is going to impact our life for the better, and possibly have the ability to impact everyone else's life around us for the better too. When we allow ourselves to forgive, we open ourselves up to so much less anger and bitterness and resentment that everyone around us sees the repercussions of that in such a good and positive way. And so when we forgive and we have the power to forgive, that power impacts everyone in our lives. And so this week, on this Forgiveness Friday, while you're watching this video, I want you to think about how you can forgive people in your life and what that power will look like into the next couple weeks. Maybe you can't see what it's going to look like over the next 5 or 10 years, but you can think about what it's going to look like over the next 2 weeks. Maybe you can call up a friend that you haven't talked to in a while because of an argument that you got into. Maybe that friendship gets mended. We don't know what all the possibilities are, because I'm sure when Nelson Mandela was working out right when he got out of prison, he would have never dreamed or imagined that this is the South Africa that he would eventually see one day. And so the power of forgiveness is really big, and it's real, and it's attainable. And so this week, I just want to encourage everyone to find that power to forgive in your life. Together, we can find that power to forgive in our life. Have a great weekend.